Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. I'm super excited to have my buddy, Dr. Ian Smith, back for a second round. This is my first. You're my first guest, man. That's been back twice. I'm super excited
Oh,
to have you.
I'm
And the
honored.
reason why the reason why I have you back, man, is because you're. I mean, gosh, I didn't realize how prolific of an author you were. Ian's written 20 books. I think he's released 2 books this year alone. He's everywhere. You see him on The Doctors. He's been on Rachel Ray, Good Morning America. He started out in New York. I knew him from NBC way back in the day. I mean, he's an OG. He's an OG doctor. He's an OG TV doctor. He's the real deal. And we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. We're really going to focus on your book that just came out, Fast Burn, which is already a New York Times bestseller. I think it hit the bestseller list within like a week of coming out, which is like ridiculous.
It did. Thank you.
It's amazing, man. So congratulations on that, man.
I appreciate you.
And yeah, man. So thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, it's my 20th book, and wow, it's like I can remember the first one like it was yesterday. I swear to you. People say, how do you write 20 books? I love to write, and I'm a very disciplined person. I compartmentalize very well. And so when I'm in focus, I'm in focus. And so I can be extremely prolific. And as you know, I do mysteries now, and I do my health and wellness. I've always had the attitude that you just try to do what appeals to you. And you don't worry about succeeding or failing. You do it because it's something you like to do. So there are plenty of things I don't do well, but the fear of not doing well is not paralyzing to me. It's inspirational to me. And so, Fast Burn, this book is a 9-week plan. It's very different than my other books. Every week on the plan is different. I tested about 2,000 people in my Facebook group, 15 to 17 pounds lost in 9 weeks. It's fun. It's affordable. The food is all affordable. It's easy. It's straightforward. Everything is laid out for you. Meals, snacks, there are options. Some people are vegans, vegetarians, pescatarians, carnivores. It doesn't matter. You can do the program because I give you all these different options. And also, I think that people think about healthy food and they think that there's no taste. And so I make sure that all the recipes in the book, everything from the tender baked pork chops to grandma's pancakes to the steak, I make sure that it's tasty. It's got to be tasty. It can't taste like cardboard. So, I always, and I know you do this too, I always think about the vantage point of the user, of the reader. And so, yeah, you can have some pasta. Yeah, you can have some bread. Yeah, there's some alcohol, because what good is a program if people can't stick to it?
Yeah, it's got to be sustainable, man. I mean, that's the whole deal. It's interesting. I'm actually obsessed with intermittent fasting. I've been intermittent fasting since 2012 when I started
Wow.
I had a major fitness transformation. Intermittent fasting was a big part of it for me. And so that's why this book is like just very very pertinent for me too. Like I'm really want to dive into your philosophy, because this is intermittent fasting, but it's a little bit of a different take on intermittent fasting. So I know for me, when I was starting out, I really was very hardcore about tracking my macros. I needed to get 200 grams of protein, 100 grams of healthy fats, and like 250 grams of carbs. Days I worked out, I had more carbs. Days I didn't work out, I had less carbs. I would weigh all my food. I was maniacal about it. I'm not like that now, because I can kind of eyeball it. I've been doing it for so long. So I know this is like a 9-week plan. You basically have like 3 parts of it. You basically ignite your system for 4 weeks. You essentially take a break for a week, and then you accelerate during the last 4 weeks, kind of like you're sprinting to the finish line. How is this different than sort of intermittent fasting is everywhere now, right? So
Yeah.
all over Instagram, intermittent fasting, and everyone's talking about it. Although, like I said, I've been doing it for almost a decade. It's been around for a long time. Always almost like a secret for a lot of
Mhm.
folks.
Yeah.
But talk to me a little bit about how this is different.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there, as you know, and you're more of an expert than I am. You've been doing it longer than me, but there are different types of intermittent fasting. There's just not one type of intermittent fasting. And in the book, I talk about 3 of the most popular types. One is time restricted feeding, the other is the 5-2 method, and lastly, the alternate fasting day method. Now, the time restricted feeding, I think, is what most people know about, right? That's where you take your 24 hours of a day, you divide it up into a feeding window and a fasting window. You're going to eat all your meals and snacks of the day in your feeding window, and then you're going to have your fast. And during your fast, in my program, you're allowed to have beverages as much as you want, but you cannot have more than 50 calories worth. So you can have as much water as you want. You could have some coffee, some tea, but you can only have a total of 50 calories. So you want to go obviously with liquids that don't have calories. And that's basically time restricted feeding. I mean, you just keep going over and over and over again. Obviously, the longer your fast, the more productive it tends to be for weight loss and for fat reduction. And I want to get your take on that in a second. And the other method is the 5-2 method. 5 days of, I say, normal eating. That doesn't mean go out and eat 10,000 calories, but 5 days of pretty normal eating, 2 days of 500 calories or less. Make sure those 2 days are not consecutive. You want to break them up. And then lastly is the alternate day fasting. A regular day of eating, 24 hours of fast. Regularly. So, you know, I employ the first two, the 5-2 and time restricted feeding in fast burn, because I want you to decide what works for you. Some people like one method over the other. Some people find that it's difficult based on their schedule or whatever it is not to do one or the other. So I try to make it so that you get a chance to experience both types of IF. And then when you finish with the 9-week program, you kind of say, hey, you know what? TRF works for me or 5-2 works for me. And that's really the premise. Now, what I want to ask you is, my research and my philosophy, I mean, intermittent fasting is still, as you know, being heavily researched. But the idea behind the fast and melting fat, and this is how I explain it. When you are in positive energy balance, that means that you have consumed more food energy, which is calories, than you're going to expend, burn off. And so you're in a positive energy state. What does the body do with that extra energy? It's got to do something. Newton's second law tells you that. So the body then says, hey, you know what? We got to store it, that energy, and it stores it in the form of fat. In a negative energy state, what I do with fast burn is try to flip you into that. Your body is seeing energy from food because you're eating, but it's not getting enough energy from food to meet the body's energy demands. So there's this deficit. And so your body has to go somewhere to get the energy in order for you to live and survive and do your daily functioning. And so it goes into the fat stores, it breaks down the fat, it takes that energy that was stored and it refuels it, and you then use that as energy. And that typically happens during your fasting period, which is why people who fast more consistently and fast longer, they tend to melt more of their fat. And I have to tell you, of all my programs, I have been most impressed by fast burn as far as how it's been able to shrink fat around people's waistlines, which is typically, as you know, a very difficult place to happen. But in my Facebook group, the before and afters and the not just the pounds on the scale, but the drop in sizes, this has been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking lean AF, as the kids say these days, right? You look good. Yeah, man. I would say for me, it was a game changer. But a lot of it also has to you can break down fat or you can break down muscle when you're fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important for folks to understand that you really need to kind of dial in your macronutrients somewhat. Unfortunately, I just got your book at 3 o'clock yesterday, and I was in the South seeing patients, so I haven't had the time to really dive into it. The last time we met, I actually read your book before we did the podcast, which was awesome. So I apologize if this is in the book, but I kind of want to just pick your brain, anyways.
Yeah.
Do you go into that? So for me personally, like I'm chasing the rock. I want to be known as the doc. The rock. So I'm very into putting muscle on. So initially, I really leaned out. I actually lost a lot of muscle in my initial shred.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
went from 196 pounds, 21% body fat, to 153 or 150 pounds,
Whoa.
8% body fat. Looked like, oh, you look good. You lost a lot of weight. Then the same friend, is he sick or something? What's wrong with this guy? And then that was like 2012, 2013. And every year since then, I've been trying to put on like 5 to 10 pounds or 7 pounds of muscle every year. So now I'm about 196 pounds and I'm still about, like 10%, 10% body fat. But the only way I can achieve that is by preserving my muscle when I fast. So for me, it's very important to eat 200 grams of protein a day, which is very difficult to do. Do you talk about that, like kind of getting your macronutrients in line?
So you are a very unique case, I have to tell you, because what you're trying to do is thread the needle. And the vast majority of people are not trying to thread a needle. They're just trying to get through it and get this weight off. You are a very different case. And the reason why I don't specifically address macros in the way that would be useful to someone like you is because I feel like for most people, the ratio of the three macros is pretty much consistent. And unless they have a real distorted distribution of carbs, fat, and protein, it's pretty much, it's going to meet their requirements and it's not going to do them any harm. Now, if you're someone trying to build muscle, then macros are really important to you. Not just are the macros important to you, but when you consume the macros and how you consume the macros are important. I don't get into that fast burn because for the reader of fast burn, the everyday Joe, the everyday Betty, fast burn, they want to lose weight. They're not trying to lose weight and then, put on lean muscle mass. So by the way, I think that is the best way to go, actually. I think that, really after fast burn, I should write a sequel that talks about, okay, how do you build lean muscle mass for men and women, by the way.
You should call it slow build, fast burn,
yeah,
slow build.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Slow build. I like that, actually. I like that. That's a book too. But so I don't address that particular. And I also don't listen, let me tell you something. I did a show called Celebrity Fit Club many years ago. And what I learned from that show, I learned a very valuable and at the time a painful lesson. I'd written this book called The Take Control Diet. It was my second book. I thought it was wonderful. It had great medical information. What is a calorie? What is a fat? All this great nutritional science stuff. And when I was doing the show, and my job on the show was to help the celebrities lose weight, I gave them the book. It's called The Take Control Diet. It's like an encyclopedia for nutrition, basically. And about midway through the season, the celebrity they say to me, Dr. Ian, we love you. And we think you're smart. We think you have our best interests at heart and blah, blah, blah. But your book is too much. Just tell us what to eat, when to eat. We don't need all the other stuff, though it's nice. We just want to know what to eat, when to eat it. And while my feelings were a little hurt at the time because I thought I had produced this fantastic book and they were but what I learned from that lesson many years ago is that when I write my books, I always write my books through the eyes of the user. And I say all of that to say to you that discussing macros in the kind of granularity that would be of use to you would make everyone else's eyes glaze over. And so I avoid, and I find those conversations interesting, by the way, and I love those conversations. But in the book, I really, pun intended, cut the fat out.
Right.
This is the premise of the book. This is why it works. This is what you need to do. Here are your snacks. Here are the great recipe chapter, all these recipes that you can cook, and here are your exercises you can do at home. And so I don't delve into macros like that, but that's not to say that macros are not important.
So let's talk about something that is important, especially for these, folks that are losing 17, 19 pounds, their waists are shrinking. I mean, the calories must be restricted. I mean, you can only lose weight if you cut down calories. You talk about that?
Yeah. So I never have my users count calories as far as what they're consuming in the day. And people will say to me, well, Dr. Ian, I'm on the plan. So how many calories am I taking a day? Here's the answer. I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because there's so many options in the book. If you're someone who chooses steak for dinner versus someone who chooses a vegetarian platter, those calories are gonna be very different, right? And so I give people ranges. I would say on fast burn, the average person on a daily basis, depending on the day, is consuming anywhere from 1,200 to 1,600 calories. There are probably some days that you get up to 1,800 calories, depending on what choices you make, but that is pretty much the range. And when we talk about weight loss for women, we typically say anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200. Not guarantees, but really is a great way to get weight loss. For men, we say anywhere up to 1,400, maybe 1,600, depending how big you are, how active you are, blah, blah, blah. So I don't go into exactly how many calories you're eating per day. And I also do not ask you to count that because I feel like it's too onerous. It's too difficult to count calories. How do you count calories when you go into a restaurant and you weren't in the kitchen cooking it and don't know what went into the food? But what I do, I ask you is I say, if you're having a protein shake, having a smoothie, or having a snack, then I say to you, this many calories or less, because everyone could pick up the back of a package and say, see, that's 200 calories, 150 calories or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. So to me, this book is for us, almost like a novice or struggling individual who wants to like kind of either lose weight for the first time or has like failed like 10 times using different strategies. And this guy who does so many different, everyone has advice, you know, for weight loss. But you're almost guaranteeing just by choosing the meals that you have in the book that you will be at a caloric deficit. You know, if you just stick to this stuff and follow these very simple guidelines, I can virtually guarantee you'll be in a caloric deficit. And if you literally just do this stuff and fast in combination with it, at the end of 9 weeks, you're basically going to have success. Like you're setting folks up for success in a very, very simple way, which is obviously the goal. And then once you, I always say this, once you like set a goal. So say someone reads this book and says, I want to lose 10 pounds. In 9 weeks, say they lose 15 pounds. That's the point where they'll say, you know what? Like, God, look at what I did. Like, this is crazy. I can't believe I did this. Like, I can't believe I'm capable of losing this much weight. Now what can I do? And that's when they start digging into the more of the science and the breaking down the macronutrients and really dissecting it out. And I think that's right. This is like a start, get in there, lose this weight, see what you're capable of doing. Then we could talk about more sophisticated things.
You are 100% correct. Is that you can't make one book be everything for everyone. And my goal for this book was to take someone who says, I want to lose weight. I want to lose it relatively quickly. I want to lose it in a healthy way. I don't want to have to sacrifice an enormous amount. And tell me what to do. And that's what fast burn is. It's going to take you there. Now, I agree with you that for the skilled or the experienced person who has dieted or is into weight management, then you're looking for a book, like you said, that talks about macros. What's the best place to get the macros and all the things that become a higher level conversation from a nutritional standpoint. That for sure is a different book. And that's why I tell people all the time, I've written 20 books. I don't know, maybe 7 of them have not been diet or something, or, you know, food related. But I tell people this, I say, the reason why I've written so many books is because there is no one book for everybody. There's no one plan that works for everybody. And people have to look and shop and think before they buy a book to see if they think that they can do the plan. Does it fit my lifestyle? Does it fit my budget? Are there foods on here I know I'm going to like and I'm willing to eat? That's important. And so, you know, there are multiple books out there in the diet arena because there's no one standard way to approach it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. But I do think intermittent fasting is something that is conducive to all goals, all lifestyles. I mean, it's a very powerful strategy for designing your diet. It's very easy to follow, and it makes a lot of sense. Talk to me a little bit about the workouts. So I personally work out fasted. So in my fasting window, regular water. That's it. So everything's 0 calories.
Yep.
And I work out fasted, but I break my fast with like a protein shake. You know, that's so I end my fast with a protein shake.
You work out at the end of your fast and then you break it so you have recovery, right? Post-workout recovery, right?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. I advise that. I do the same thing, by the way. So I'm an early morning riser, been that way since the tortures of med school and sub-Is and everything. So I wake up early no matter what. I didn't have to set an alarm clock. I'm up at 5:30. And I work out right away. Nothing to eat, you know, I work out right away. And then I break my fast also with protein. I get it from a variety of sources. I may have yogurt. I may have a tuna fish sandwich. You know, I get my protein. So that's how I break it. And what I tell people, for those who are novice to this concept, the idea of a fasted workout, and I'm interested in what you think about this. The idea for me of a fasted workout is, think about it. You've just spent X number of hours, let's say 7 hours of sleeping without any nutrition on board. But even though you're sleeping, by the way, your body is demanding and needing energy and using energy. So you pretty much will have depleted most of what you put on board the previous night by the time you wake up. And your body needs energy to get going. And so if you do your workout in a fasted state during your fasting window, you are dramatically increasing the energy demands of the body without answering it right away with calories from food. And once again, we go into the business of driving into your fat stores and keeping yourself into a fat burning mode. And so I think fasted workouts are awesome, but I always caution people, if you get lightheaded, I mean, you should drink beverages, by the way, of course, but if you get lightheaded or you have underlying medical conditions, or you're really going to do a crazy rigorous workout, it's probably not advisable to do that in a fasted state. So people have to listen to their own body cues.
Yeah, absolutely. What I did kind of thumb through the workout part of your book.
Oh,
There's a lot of stuff in there actually.
so the idea behind the workout is very simple. The idea is that this book is a one-stop shop, and people who either can't afford a gym, don't want to go to a gym, don't have a gym nearby, I wanted to create a chapter of exercises you can do right at home without any equipment. And so you'll see, not only do I explain it, jump lunges, for example, I show you pictures, illustrations, so you know how to do it, line hops, all these things you can do in your basement, your bedroom, lunges, outside, it doesn't matter. And so my recommendation typically is 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise 4, 5 days a week. If you want to break it up, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 at night or late afternoon, completely fine. Now, if you want to do more than that, obviously great, do more than that. But I don't want people to have the impression that they have to, work out for an hour and a half, dripping in sweat in a gym in order, to lose weight. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and also you don't want to burn out.
Yeah.
That's a quick way to burn out. And I see that with a lot of folks. Like they'll work out 7 days a week. Their goals are good, but the execution, it's just it's too exhausting. It's impossible to stick to it. It's kind of like what you were talking about with the diet. It's not sustainable. It has to be a diet that's sustainable, a workout regimen that's sustainable.
And then they're not really working out because they're tired and they can't sustain it. So they're not really
Right.
effective workouts. Take
Yeah.
20 minutes off and actually do an effective workout for that period of time. That's way more than just kind of occupying time in the gym and you're not really working out.
So let's talk about you, man. What are you doing for your workouts these days?
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of lifting. Um, I don't know. I'm just a school lifter. I like lifting.
Same.
I'm not going as heavy as I used to because I don't want to put all the pressure on my joints. But I lift a lot, and then for my cardio, I mostly play sports. So I'm still an avid sportsman. Um, I run. I don't like running per se. It's boring to me. It just
Same.
never has excited me. But running can be very effective. I mean, it's a great way to get your heart pumping. But I try to do more kind of HIIT exercises, more body weight exercises, where I'm doing cardio and some resistance. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And I'm always in the business of trying to build lean muscle mass. And I have found over this year, because I've been home instead of traveling, I'm in a great groove. I mean, my strength is where I want it to be. My body's looking good. So I'm just staying the course right now. How about you?
I lift, baby.
Yeah.
Pumping an iron, man. That's it.
Pumping,
Yeah,
right?
I'm very attentive to my macronutrients, and I basically just lift. That's it. And then sometimes I'll do some like sort of low intensity, steady state cardio, like just walking on an incline on a treadmill.
So how long
But
do you lift for?
an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I do. So I just actually had a discectomy, laminectomy emergently about 7 weeks ago. So I couldn't work out for about 6 weeks, which sucked.
Wow.
But I'm back
So
now. So
what percent did you lose not working out?
actually, I didn't really lose much. I was really
Really?
nervous about it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of I lost my sort of my swollenness,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
pump,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it came back pretty quick. 'Cause I was
Oh, yeah.
so I used that time to be really attentive about my nutrition.
Yep.
So I kind of low carbed it because I wasn't really working out, up my protein and healthy fats, and I just really dialed in my macronutrients
Yeah.
just to maintain.
And I tell people that, by the way. I'm glad you mentioned that. I tell people in my group will say, well, I've had a procedure or I have physical limitations, you know, I'll have it for the next 2 or 3 weeks. What should I do? And I say, this is the time where you absolutely have to focus in on your nutrition. Like you have to really get serious about it, because while you may not lose as much weight, what you can do with your nutrition is at least stop the weight gain, and at least keep yourself at a steady state. And by the way, people who are watching and listening, I have a great group. You can join us on Facebook. It's called Fast Burn Challenge. Fast Burn Challenge. You just join the group. We got 10,000 people in the group, and everyone's doing it together. We post recipes. I do live sessions in the group. It's very supportive, very positive, and the community is fantastic. So join our challenge. And if you're not on Facebook, on my Instagram, I try to post, recipes and workouts. So that's at Dr. Ian Smith. Spell the doctor out, IAN Smith. But yeah, man, I got to tell you, it's interesting, when people are asking, which is more important, exercise or nutrition? And I say,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a 1-2 punch. I mean,
Yeah.
you can lose weight, by the way, just by eating better and no exercise. You can lose weight just by exercising and not eating great. But at some point, you're going to plateau
Yeah.
because one system is going to take you so far. And that's why it's a 1-2 punch.
That's it, man. There's a lot of things that I like are my mantras on my Instagram posts. Like one is we're talking about, you can dial in your nutrition when you can't work out. I'm all about no matter what, you have to get your one daily win that gets you one step closer to your goal. So if you can't work out, your nutrition better be dialed in because that's the only way you could get your win. Your daily win that gets you closer to your goal. Yeah, man. I mean, that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah.
Aside from the book, man, I want to pick your brain just about two other
Yeah.
things, just because you are,
Yeah.
world famous doctor, man.
I don't know about
So
that. But go ahead.
the last time that we were, chopping it up, it was in the middle of the pandemic, at the height of it. And, we were both on lockdown. There was no vaccine. There was talks of a vaccine at that time, but there was no vaccine. Now, fast forward, many months later, and I assume you're vaccinated. I know you're vaccinated because I saw on Instagram. I'm vaccinated. A lot of us are vaccinated. But a lot of us aren't vaccinated. And I think maybe a third of our population is not keen on the vaccine. That's 100 million people.
It's a big problem.
It is. So
It's a big problem.
And there's a
Listen.
lot even that I hear from folks that are quote unquote anti-vaxxers. It's a lot of misinformation that's directing them.
It's a big problem. I got to tell you, I'm speaking as first a scientist and physician, and then I'm speaking just as an American. First, as a scientist, and this is basic virology. We learned this in medical school. Viruses behave a certain way, and their behavior, in most cases, is pretty predictable by scientists. And anyone who has any credibility and knowledge of how viruses work, they understand that right now, this vaccine is the only way to get this thing calmed down. It's the only way. There's no medication for it that's going to be preventive. You need to have a vaccine. And it's very distressing to hear people say the most outlandish things about a vaccine. I mean, they have politicized this thing, they have turned it into a religious thing. Like, who sits home and comes up with this stuff? This is just science. It's apolitical, it's agnostic, it's just science. This is how things, their genes, their chromosomes, their scientific facts. The sun rises in the east, it sets in the west. That's just how it is. It's not like, oh, it's doing that because. And so when I hear people say, I'm not getting that vaccine, or I don't know what's in that vaccine. You don't know what's in the vaccine, huh? What was in the chickenpox vaccine you took as a kid that you had to take to go to school, and all those other vaccines you took? Did you know that? Did your parents know that? Of course they didn't. So I find it very humorous in a satirical way that people are so analytical of a vaccine that is life-saving, yet they weren't so critical and analytical of a vaccine that would prevent, illnesses that were uncomfortable but weren't necessarily, potentially life-ending. And so there's a whole environment of, I don't know what it is. I don't know if people are just bored, they're frustrated, they're tired, they feed on people's fears. But the idea that here we are in the worst crisis that this world has seen in years, and people are actually making up stuff, and other people are believing it and promoting it and perpetuating it is so frustrating. And you know as a doctor that sooner or later, if enough people are not vaccinated, that a variant is going to develop, a mutation is going to occur where the current vaccines are no longer effective, and we're all going to need booster shots. It's coming.
Yep. I mean, look at India now. It's just they were like the picture of success, and now it's just an utter mess.
A mess. So everybody relaxed too much.
Yep.
It's over. It's not really over until those numbers are really, really, really low. And it reminds me. I don't know if I said this to you before. It reminds me of, have you ever been on a plane where it almost landed but it had to go back up?
One time. One time.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah.
It's very nervous and very uncomfortable. This is where we are. Like the plane is trying to land, but when people are not doing the right thing, that plane's got to take back up again. And
Yeah.
this is where we are. So listen, I'll be positive and hope that more of the population gets it. We need them to get it, by the way, because we need at least 70, 80% for a reasonable chance at herd immunity. Otherwise, the variants are going to keep coming, the mutations are going to keep happening, and sooner or later, they're going to be like, guys, these vaccines do not work against variant BY123, and now we got to revaccinate. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm with you 100% on that, man. The other thing I just want to pick your brain about, and it's kind of it's sort of a controversial topic, although it shouldn't be one. Something I've been very vocal about on my social media is just how broken our healthcare system is. How a lot of folks, for a lot of folks don't have insurance. One, folks that have insurance, a great bulk of them are underinsured because they have a huge deductible. Like I know for my staff in my office, there's very limited plan they can get, and the plans are so expensive, and they also have like a $10,000 deductible. It's almost like the insurance companies are discouraging folks from seeking health care. Um, and it's a mess. And every 4 years, there's like, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do for healthcare. These are the changes that we're gonna make. But as a doctor, practicing physician, I was practicing during the entire pandemic. I just see it get worse from year to year. My patients have less and less coverage, and they have more and more out-of-pocket expense. And a lot of the blame wrongly falls on the doctors. It's the insurance companies that are really to blame because they're the ones who set these policies, and they're in the pockets of our legislators. And it's this never-ending cycle that basically perpetuates itself. When there is healthcare reform on the table, the people that are brought in you know, to affect that reform are health insurance companies. So they're like, hey, okay, let's expand how much money you guys are getting from the government. Ends up, obviously filling the pockets of the insurance companies and leaves doctors and patients kind of on the side. And it's becoming increasingly frustrating. Just as a practicing physician, like I'm there seeing patients, they're pissed because they're not getting coverage. I pay $3,600 or $3,300 or something like that a month for my family's health insurance, and I have a $10,000 deductible. Like it's just a crazy broken system. Just and you don't have to. I'm just curious what your thoughts in general are.
The healthcare paradigm that we currently exist under is broken, and it needs to be demolished and rebuilt. That's the only real way. The business of tinkering and making slight modifications, well, it's like when you fix this part, then this part breaks. When you fix this part, that part breaks. And so you're in constant repair mode. And it's like roadways, and while they make us all upset when they shut down a major artery because they have construction, but the idea is let's just get it done. We all suffer together for a period of time so that when it opens back up, we all benefit together. Same thing with the healthcare system. This paradigm is anachronistic. It is inefficient. It is unequal. And it's illogical, and it needs to be demolished. The whole system, the relationship with insurance companies and hospitals and healthcare providers and patients, the whole thing is not working. In fact, I think one of the biggest issues is the way that we look at healthcare is the problem. We should look at healthcare as a human right rather than looking at it as a privilege. And when you look at it as a right that everyone should have good quality healthcare because it is humane, it is what is going to help people live less, a more quality of life and live longer. Every human being should have a chance to live as long as possible and to live as well as possible. Well, meaning health well as possible. That we all should agree that that is the case. I mean, why don't I want you to live well? You living well doesn't hurt me living well, right? You being healthy doesn't hurt. So we all should want, and in fact, the healthier we all are, the happier we are, the more productive we are, the longer we live, the more contributing we can be to a greater earth for those generations behind us. It's the whole paradigm is wrong, and our viewpoint of healthcare is wrong. And it's gotten so co-opted by financial interest. You know, I thought that the primary purpose of healthcare was to help people, to give people quality of life. Instead, the primary now is how do we make it work financially, right?
Yep.
How does the budget work? It's all kinds of stuff. And to be very honest with you, when you look at paying a $10,000 deductible and you're paying over $3,000 a month, first of all, paying over $3,000 a month is outrageous. It's outrageous. I mean, you are very successful, fortunately, but look at the average person who is making 40 to $50,000 a year.
They can't do it.
How do you do it? So you got
Can't.
to make choices now, right? So now it's like, well, I'm not gonna take my kid, to the hospital this time because, or I won't go because, and now all of a sudden you have the disparities increasing because the haves can go as much as they want, the have-nots cannot go. This is a major problem, and I think honestly and truly, and I'm a very optimistic person, but I think the only way to solve this problem is completely decimate the system and start all over. And I feel the same way about taxes. I think that the tax system is completely broken, and you have to start all over with the whole IRS and all that. We have to figure out a new way. These things have been around for hundreds of years, and they just don't work now. They just don't work. I mean, that's the way it is.
I'm with you, man. Interesting. Just to some of the points that you raised. United Healthcare made $6.6 billion in profit during the second quarter of 2020. So think about that. That's April, May, and June of 2020, the height of the worst pandemic in over 100 years. And the health insurance company is its most profitable because no one's going to the doctor and no one's going to the hospital.
Wow.
It's crazy,
Wow.
man. Right? It's a
And,
broken
and
system, man.
it's a broken system. And I think that, people have to have courage.
Yeah.
You got to elect leaders who have courage, who are not afraid to be disruptors and to be agents of change. That's what we need. And right now we're just having the same old, same old. And like you said,
Yeah.
people are in each other's pockets and interest, and the interest that should be the primary interest, which is the patient and everyone's well-being, is low down on the list.
You're right on, man. But one thing we all can do is we can all seize control of our own health.
That's right.
And one of the ways that we can do that is by, dropping the fat off our bodies, moving, eating healthy, and having a strategy, that's sustainable to live a healthy life. And, Dr. Ian Smith has once again, God, it's supposed to be your 12th book about fitness or weight loss or dialing in your nutrition. But, I think this is a must read really for anyone who has failed a diet, who's frustrated, or anyone who's just new to the game and wants like a way to just get in and do something that's very effective and that's just great for them as, their bodies, their mind, and just something that they can really do and very efficiently.
It is. And I appreciate you having me on to talk about it. And I'm encouraged by the results we're seeing early with people. And once again, just to say, hey, come to our Facebook group, Fast Burn Challenge, and join it. It's over 10,000 people in it now, probably more by the time you get there. And on Instagram at Dr. Ian Smith, spell the doctor out, IAN Smith. I just like you, I just try to empower people and better their lives. And I just do whatever I can. I'm not the most powerful person or the most well-known person, but whatever I have, my tools, I just try to help people.
And you do, my man. And I just can't thank you enough for, man, spending your afternoon with us for a little bit of your afternoon here. I always love chatting with you, man.
It's always fun. Thanks for having me back.
All right, brother.